The conversation that I'm having with all of the people that I know is that ends now. Like, this is just totally out of control.
I just went back and looked at the first poll I remember doing with you. Do you remember what it was?
Oh gosh, no, I don't. Socialism. It had to have been about socialism.
No, it wasn't. It was about the media.
Oh, really? Wow.
You remember?
I do remember that actually was one of the most interesting polls I think we did. It didn't get a lot of press attention, but essentially
we didn't have a YouTube channel yet, so that was one of the problems.
Yeah, that's true. But that poll was incredible. We basically asked people questions. If this is the one that you're referring to.
Yeah, Fox News versus everybody else.
Yeah. What do people know? We asked them questions about real world things happening and what their perception of that is. Like, how many unarmed African Americans are getting murdered by police, that kind of question. And then we compared that with where people are getting their media, and we found there is a clear connection between where people get their media and their perception of what's going on in the world. That should be like a book or something. This
is the story of the Biden clown world. This is the story of the American Republic here, because the numbers are like, I didn't even realize how crazy they were back then when I did this. This was my first presidential cycle. Rasmussen's been around a while, and we have a good methodology, and I was trained well in it. But I'm just looking at it. It's like, okay, the right answer to that question on how many African Americans were fatally shot in 2020, MSNBC viewers, only 19% of them were right, but 60% of Fox News viewers were right.
Yep.
And then what it turned into, this fall in November in our swing state stuff, we asked, well, what's your favorite news channel? And people who watch MSNBC, their number one and number two issues were threats to democracy and abortion. And the number one and two issues of Fox News viewers were illegal immigration and prices.
What the media you consume actually does matter. And people obviously talk about that all the time. And then I think it kind of gets almost dismissed. Like, the reason why it seems like America lives in two different worlds, because that's like two different universes, the left and the right now, is because they do live in two different universes. And a lot of that comes from the media. It's what they hear. Sometimes we've done polls or we've talked to people even, and it's like they have no knowledge of things that are going on in the news that's on Fox News, like literally nonstop all the time, every single day for 2 straight weeks. But other channels don't talk about it. And so it's as though it didn't even happen.
I've been really going down this rabbit hole because it's true. They live in a very carefully constructed bubble of carefully arranged selective facts. And man, like, we could talk about it more later, but the stuff that every time I go to Reddit, it just blows my mind. And that has over a 1 billion unique monthly users. It's the 5th biggest website. I was on the Christianity subreddit, and for some reason yesterday, they didn't notice any major events happening yesterday. Like, there were no relevant events to Christianity in the news yesterday.
Reddit is truly the sewer of the internet. It is a dangerous, dangerous place. The Fox News fans Reddit is basically now an anti-Fox News Reddit.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone can go.
Of course, it's
totally
like,
take it over. Yeah.
They once they get the one mod in, that turns the whole thing, right? I guess that's how it works. For people watching this after the fact, yesterday was the Charlie Kirk basically like revival funeral that every single speaker quoted scripture.
Yeah, incredible. Just incredible. Yeah. It was a revival. I mean, that's a good way of framing it. It was essentially a massive, massive revival. And I can't think of any time, certainly not in my life, but I mean, I'm not even aware of anything that's happened in modern American history quite like that, where you had heads of state and the most powerful people in the world going all to a funeral for a private citizen with 10,000 other people there in the room. And then it is essentially a revival on top of that, with Christian music and open prayer and every speaker talking about God. Literally, I'm not sure that this has happened in, like, maybe 100 years ago, something like this happened, but nothing in modern history. And you do have to wonder and even hope that maybe this will help move things in the right direction going forward. Certainly, it's energized people on the right to understand what's at stake here.
Yeah.
I think there's no question about that. The people deeply impacted by this has been unbelievable. People crying. I mean, I know people at the Heartland Institute and other places I work with in tears over what happened. You know, this is impacting people in a way that I don't think anybody anticipated it would.
Yeah, I didn't coin this, but people have been saying, like, I'm not saying this insensitively, that it is a turning point. It literally is a turning point. And we don't know how much yet. And I think we'll see, but I think the biggest thing is that the way people are talking publicly now, it feels like they've finally got a permission slip to not tolerate the alternative set of facts that people have just been nice and agreeable about not confronting.
That's great. I love that. I think that's exactly right. I've had that conversation with so many people who have told me, people who work in industry, and and I'm guilty of this too, where you go to family events or you go in your personal life, you're with friends or whatever, and it's a mixed audience and there's some left-wing people there or whatever, and they're saying some stuff and you just let it go. You just don't say anything because you just want to keep the peace. You don't want to turn it into a big thing. You don't want to get baited into having an argument around some family dinner table with 20 relatives there or whatever. But the conversation that I'm having with all of the people that I know is that ends now. Like, this is just totally out of control. And the crazies on the left, not everybody on the left is crazy, but the crazies on the left have essentially declared themselves as the keepers of morality, that literally anything goes so long the ends justify the means, because they're on the right side of history and everybody else is wrong. And this language of fascist and Nazi and all of that is totally justified. And they feel righteous indignation about everything. And even when someone gets killed, there's a lot of people doing that. Not all of them, obviously, but a lot of people. And it has to end. People on the right have to stop with that. You can't allow people to just be called fascist and Nazi and all these other terms that are not based in reality at all without any kind of pushback. And I do think, I can't tell you how many people I've heard in my personal life say, I'm not tolerating it for a second more. And I think that's a good thing.
We have some, in my opinion, encouraging polling about that. The crazies you're seeing on TikTok, what the algorithm shows us, and the socialistic monoculture on Reddit are not the bulk of Democrats. 90% of Democrats are concerned about political violence now because of the assassination. They're actually more concerned than Republicans because they've been taught that MAGA is violent extremists. But 85% of them agreed with President Trump that political violence is the outcome of basically dehumanizing your opponents, all of the media language. And then also we asked a question, I don't think we published it yet. There's so much of stuff has happened, I can't even remember. Basically, the question was this a tragic assassination of somebody who is trying to debate people with whom he disagrees, or is it a tragic but understandable outcome from somebody who was saying hateful rhetoric? And that second response was only about a quarter of people, only about 30% of Democrats. So the actual Democrat demons are only about 30 to 40% of the party based on the polling. We've seen that with Luigi Mangione and burning down Teslas as well. But I don't know how you resolve that, because that's ubiquitously what all of their power structures seem to want to reinforce.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that is the problem. The problem is not that the Democrat Party and the left generally is full of insane people. It's that the leaders are being driven by the insane people, or they are insane people themselves. But that's the issue. The issue that they have on the left is that the leaders in academia are either held hostage by the crazies or they are the crazies. The leaders in Hollywood, the leaders in the music industry, the leaders in politics, the leaders in media, it's all one of those two things. Either they feel like they have to appease the crazy left, or they are the crazy left. And that really is the issue. This is not the majority of people, even on the left. It's certainly not the majority of people in America, but they have an outsized impact because they're so incredibly aggressive with how they approach things. and everyone else is not. They're just not that aggressive. They're so
Yeah.
aggressive, and I think you could trace that back all the way to Occupy Wall Street. Like, I think that's when it started.
Hmm.
When they decided that we can just force the world into doing what we want by protesting endlessly and sometimes violently and vandalize things and scream at people in the street and all of this stuff, we actually can get a lot accomplished by doing that. It just escalated from there over and over and over again. I mean, that's where after that was all of the the various versions of Black Lives Matters and all of that stuff is flowed out of Occupy Wall Street. That was when they realized how much power they had. And it has never stopped since then. No matter who's been president, even under Democrats presidents, they do it.
I never traced it back that far, because if you look at Reddit again, who I think is a keystone in the mental cult that they've built, Reddit was still a free speech outpost until 2015. Interesting. And I remember walking past the picket lines in Occupy Wall Street back in that would have been 2011, summer of 2011, which also we're talking about well into the Obama administration. Something happened about then. And I really wonder what it was, but it's like, hey, we're going to force this down your throat and you're expected to consume it.
Yeah. And they haven't stopped since then. And it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And I think that the social media and the internet and all of that stuff has made, as that's become more ubiquitous, as people with smartphones and the apps and like short videos, all of these things have pushed more towards rage culture in general. And I think all of that is tied into it. But they have taken the approach, the far left wing of the Democrat Party has taken the approach that we are right about everything. We are the good guys and everyone else is the bad guys. And so anything we do, no matter what it is, we could burn down police stations and it can be justified. And that is literally, and that is the approach. And everyone else is just saying, I don't really want to talk about it around the dinner table, but that is the problem. Like, that is the problem. We've been dehumanized on the right, a lot of us, because we don't speak up in those moments and say, no, wait a minute. That's not true. Yeah. People on the right are not fascists. They're not Nazis. And that needs to change. It has to change.
That's really interesting. So you're coming, and we'll show your site in a little bit, but you're coming from stopping socialism. And some of the polling we're going to look at is like, okay, free market capitalism versus socialism. And obviously what we don't have right now is free market capitalism. We're in something else. And there's a lot to discuss there. But really this fight is something different. It's like a wrestle for the world. People who have objective rational thought rebelling against essentially what is clown world. And I think that clown world has been like the biggest psychological operation probably ever played in human history. Why it's so hard is because people with objective thought like are disagreeable about something. Sometimes you have to disagree and say, no, you're wrong. That's not right. And it's almost like this herd mentality, moral authority, desire to have social cohesion. And like that's what's been weaponized is people's, I don't even know how to say it other than like, I think 4chan probably has the core wisdom. There was a copy pasta that basically like people that don't reason based on logic, they reason based on emotions and fitting in, are susceptible to brute force manufactured consensus. And that's where we're at.
Yeah. If you feel like something is wrong, then that's good enough. And for a lot of people, that's where we're at. And it's not, and the media and everything is playing right into this, where it's not just, oh, I don't agree with you, or, oh, I think this is bad, or no, it's the other side is evil. They're dictators. They're Nazis. They're on the verge of rounding people up and throwing them into prison unjustly. Like, this is the kind of language they're using all the time. And so if you're a person, because I think that throughout human history, there's always a segment of people, not necessarily bad people or even stupid people or anything like that, but there's always a segment of people that are driven primarily by emotion. And those people, when you're feeding them constantly this fear porn and this idea that the right is the most evil group of people ever, and they start to feel that way, it becomes very hard to talk them out of it, because now it's just ingrained in them that this is really bad. They're really scary. They're evil. They're dangerous. And I think that messaging over and over and over again, which in previous eras, when you think about it, I mean, you go back to the 1990s, 1980s, basically prior to the internet. I mean, there was only so much of that you could do to a person to begin with, because, how much content are you even consuming in a day, right? And now it's just all the time for a lot of these people, and that fear aspect of it. And so I think people who are driven more by emotion are more susceptible to this. And people driven by emotion also do a lot of really great things, because they tend to be more compassionate and stuff like that too. But it's just, I think there's a lot of, frankly, like kind of evil people taking advantage of that, knowing they can manipulate people, especially younger people, into these horrible ideas by playing on their fears and emotions using modern technology. And it reached a crisis level, which is why you're seeing someone like Charlie Kirk get assassinated. It's happening because of that. I mean, it's downstream of that, without any question at all, in my mind.
They mastered it into a coup de grace that was COVID, mass formation psychosis. And think about that kid who's the alleged shooter going through probably his senior year in high school during the pandemic. I think they broke a lot of things. Probably. There are societal sins that we are only starting to uncover in Generation Z.